Hi, everyone, and welcome. I hope that all of you are ready to be productive because I am going to host some reading sprints. I'm really happy that I have plenties for today because this is one of those days that I came home 3 hours ago. I was home pretty early, and if I didn't have this planned, I would probably be laying on the couch. If you're on my Discord, you notice I am a couch potato and not really do anything. I would probably get lazy and tired. So now that we had this planned, I was actually very excited. I'm pretty awake right now, and I am ready to do some reading. So please let me know if you're watching live, of course, what you are going to read, or if you're going to do something else productive. And if you are watching afterwards, let me know in the comments what you have planned. Also, I just quickly also wanted to mention that I do hope audio is better right now. I'm not using an external microphone because I just tried it with my husband in the other room with the other computer, and he said that this was fine. But if you guys can't hear me, please let me know because then I will have to try some things, which is fine as well. I have some microphones here next to me. Maybe we need to switch things up. Maybe this is a place with not the best Wi Fi. Oh, okay. For now, the audio is fine. Thank you, Jeroen. So let's hope that it stays this way because I tried to ask some other people who also use StreamYard what their settings are, and they use the same settings as me. Plus, I've been doing this for a while on other people's live streams, and they never really had an issue. So if it happens again, I do think that it's a problem with my Wi-Fi connection, maybe because I am doing this wireless. Maybe in the future I should use cable, but I don't know how that does with a Mac because MacBooks are great. They are extremely expensive because luckily I got these from work because otherwise I would never have bought it. They're great, but they don't really have a lot of ports. So for the internet cable, I don't know how I should attach it here. So let's just hope it remains okay. Hi, Ashley. Isn't it It's afternoon where you are, right? US is afternoon right now. I do think that most of the people who are watching are either from Europe or the US, because otherwise it is probably going to be pretty late. Okay, that is a relief. But I do know that last time it was also okay until I started talking like an angry robot. But if that happens again, we'll just start sprints, and hopefully, then when the sprints are ended, it's okay again. Hi, Emily. Are you still happy living in Belgium? I think that it's almost a year now that you're here, right? And how is Suki? Hi, Chadia. Oh, did you have to work late or is traffic just horrible? I always try to leave a little bit early, but I go into work around 7 a.m. at the latest. I try to be in front of traffic when I go there, and that means that I can also leave a little bit early. But today we had something happening at so I'm not the best driver. I am not afraid of mentioning that. I'm not ashamed of saying that. I'm not the best driver. But on the highway, I'm usually pretty safe. I'm on the most right lane. And if you're not from Europe, basically on the most right lane, the slow people are. So everybody just passes you by. But right in front of me on the highway, a bus had an issue and he just hit the brakes. So I couldn't really move. So I had to rewind on the highway, and I I was so afraid. I thought that I was going to have an accident, but luckily I was home. And at that moment, I thought, well, it's good that I leave in time, so nothing really happens. Because if it's extremely busy and something like that happens, you probably have an accident. So yeah, not the best driver, but at least I know I know my weaknesses, and I try to prevent anything bad happening. Hi, Safina. Well, I actually have a little bit of an issue because I don't really know. I thought I had it all planned out, basically. I was going to read either Winter Rose or The Witch and the Tsar, which I don't even have here next to me, so that's not an option anymore. But Winter Rose is a fairy tale, and even though I really want to read this, I just read Deerskin, which is also a fairy tale. And then The Witch and the Tsar, it's historical fantasy, but it's with Baba Yaga. It's also a little bit of a fairy tale. So I'm not really in the mood of that. In that, I'm more in the mood for it's not traditional fantasy, but a typical fantasy book. So I don't really know what I'm going to read. I have a couple of options. I have Liar's Knot, which is the second book in the Rook and Rose trilogy. I have A Brightness Long Ago, which, to be honest, I'm more excited to read this one. But at the same time, I have been wanting to read this one for years at this point. I've been saying for years that I'm going to try Guy Gabriel Kay, and I never do. So maybe it's time that I pick up this one. Plus, it's a standalone. But the other option is Beneath the Twisted Trees, which is the fourth book in the Song of the Shattered Sand series. So I basically have these three options. Please let me know what is the smartest decision, and if I maybe just need to give Guy Gabriel Kay a chance. And then I may have started this one today, On Winter's Eve, which is a tiny book. So this is very atmospheric. It's extremely slow. It's only 140 pages, so it's a novella. Not a lot happens. It's what I've been told. I've heard that it's very atmospheric, but very slow, a little bit boring, which sounds like I would love it. But at the same time, I don't think that I need reading sprints for this. I'll probably be fine picking this up tomorrow and finishing it in a day. So maybe starting one of these big books during sprints is smarter, right? I'm going to put this here down next to me. So yeah, just that was a very long explanation to say that I don't really know what I'm going to read. Hi, Hans. Ooh, package people. That's late. But it's the holidays are crazy for those people. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes at this point. I know somebody who works in delivery services and he says that it's really not fun now. Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, it definitely is chilly. I know that a friend of mine, she just had a rescue dog. I think that she is 5 months at this time, but she has like a little sweater because she's too cold. Hi, Jose. My two are sleeping as well. Even though when they heard me talking to basically my laptop, they looked up for like 5 seconds, like, what's happening here? But at this point, they're used to me and my crazy antics, I suppose. Oh, hi. That's so nice of you. Yeah, it's always a shame. I love the internet and how we are now just have the accessibility to everybody and we can basically talk to people from across the world. But time zones, they are a pain. And you can never arrange something that everybody that you want to be able to attend can attend. So that's a little bit of a hassle. But I do hope that when holidays are coming, I have 2 weeks off from December 24th or 23rd, I think, maybe already, and then 2 weeks. So then I will try to also do some reading sprints that basically are all over the day for me, so that no matter what part of the world you are in, you will at least be able to attend to one if you are interested. Yeah, and it's at the same time, of course, that bus driver wasn't really at fault because something can happen, and if your car breaks down or your bus breaks down, that's life. But everybody was honking, and I thought, like, I don't know what to do. I mean, it's not my fault, but I can get very stressed in traffic because I don't really know what. If everything goes right, that's okay. But if something does not go according to plan, I basically just have a meltdown and I cannot make a decision. I've only read the first one, well, hence why I want to try The Liar's Knot. But it's been a year, and thinking more and more about that first book, I really enjoyed that one. So I should probably just read that second one. Glad to hear it. Yeah, I've been in a reading slump for months, and I'm so happy that I'm finally crawling out of it. I still don't have the same amount of books that I read in a given month, but I'm enjoying reading again, and that's what's most important for me. So I try to also be now very careful at picking up a book, not really feeling it at the moment, and then not continue reading because I don't want to be in that reading slump again. For example, I actually filmed the start of my reading vlog. Well, it's not going to be a reading vlog anymore because I'm not reading these books, but I wanted to have a wintry reading vlog where I was going to read The Winter Rose and then another winter themed book. But I'm not feeling it right now. And I'm so afraid that that will push me in a reading slump again if I pick it up and start reading, even though I'm not in the mood. That, no, it's not worth the risk. We've all been there, Evie. I actually took my book with me at work today because I wanted to have a very just slow lunch, eat my dinner, well, eat my lunch, and then at the same time read. But a lot of coworkers were also taking a break. And even though that's nice and it's nice to have human interaction, I just wanted to read my book. So I completely understand you at the very least. Hi, Esme. I know, Eris. And thanks for subscribing. I do hope that you enjoy the videos that I will be putting out hopefully soon, because tomorrow I have filming day. Well, filming hour. I still have to work. But tomorrow I am working from home, so that means that I don't have the traffic. And usually that means that I win at the very least 2 hours. But at max, if it's really busy traffic, I win 4 hours. So that's a lot of filming time that I have. But yeah, finding reading sprints at this time of the day, it's not easy. And there used to be somebody, I talked about this last week as well. Amber used to do reading sprints every Monday evening, but I think that she stopped for a while. Maybe she's going to return to it again. But that was a lot of fun because us Europeans, we need to stick together and do some reading sprints in the evenings. Yeah, exactly. And then, especially if, well, with us, of course, we don't just have Christmas and New Year's, but we also have Sinterklaas. So it's a lot of work, and people are usually not that lenient when something arrives too late, but especially for those holidays, because if it's 2 days late, it's really late. While for something else, if it's a little bit later, it's no big deal. So I can also imagine that most people are not very understanding. Just going to quickly check if somebody has said something about audio. Not yet. Okay, audio is still going strong. Ooh, okay. I I really want to give Guy Gable K a chance. And to be honest, I have my fall TBR here next to me, but I still need to read. And it's 7 physical books in total. So I will never be able to finish all those 7. So I will need to make choices. But the other ones that I still have are Sybil Secret, and I think that maybe I'll just postpone this one until next year. Not entirely sure. And then Priory of the Orange Tree. I think that during my fall TBR, I said that this was going to be its final chance. If I had not picked it up in fall, I should probably let go of it and unhaul it. But I haven't even given it a chance. And I still have my bookmark here. Apparently, last time I got 60 pages in, which it's a crime, to be honest. I can't unhaul a book that I didn't even read 10% of. So maybe I should also postpone that to a different part of the year. Yes, it's so fun when you have time off during the holidays. I was already looking at my schedule because, well, with the holidays I go to my family, but my grandma is also it's her birthday, the 26th. So we have a lot of family dinners. Then I was meeting up with friends again. So I actually wanted to do a holiday TBR. And then I realized that the holidays are pretty busy. But at the very least, I can do reading sprints in the mornings or something like that. But usually I'm at work. So that will be happening. Going to do some parenting. Well, maybe, hopefully, in a couple of hours, they're going to be asleep. But, well, probably by the time that your children are asleep, I don't know how late that is, but we might be done sprinting by then. Oh, by the way, for sprints in a couple of minutes, 30 minutes or 45. I have not made other timers in the meantime, so those are the options. Thanks, Kitty. And hopefully you can make it next week. But with these evenings, of course, sometimes something else comes up, of course. Hope you have a lot of fun, whatever you have planned. Okay. There are some liars not. So I'll probably just give that one a go. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm just feeling anxious that I still haven't given Guy Gavriel Kay a chance, and I know that a lot of people have told me that he is very Robin Hobb like. So, by the way, I'm almost at the end of Fool's Quest. I'm listening to that one on audiobook, and I have 8 minutes left. So it could also be that for the first sprints, I'm just going to listen to those 8 minutes. So if you see some very weird facial expressions, or if you see me starting to cry, I don't know what's going to happen towards the end, but then that's probably what's happening. You were just excited already. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm so glad because yesterday I took the day off because I still have a couple of holidays that I have not used yet, and I was going to film. But I was a little bit lazy and I did not do that. But if I was going to film yesterday, I was going to film my Legends and Myth Retellings TBR because at that point, that was the one that won the poll that I had on the community tab. But like I said, I did not film. And then today I went and checked that poll, and now the Grimdark TBR has won. So it's a good thing that I have not filmed these yet. So tomorrow I am going to film the Grimdark TBR, unless something else happens to the poll, but I don't think so. And that's also the one that I'm going to immediately upload and go live tomorrow, unless something happens. Because I have not showed this, but I will send a picture on Discord. But I have my camera, and the battery of the camera is only 20 minutes, if that. So if you film with that, no, I usually need to do multiple takes, so 20 minutes is nothing. So now I have, well, now I've had it for a year, something that you can basically charge the camera while you're recording, which is godsend, but the wire is completely broken. So sometimes I need to like do some stuff. So hopefully tomorrow it's still okay. I am going to order a new one, I think, because if that one breaks down, I just can't film, and I really need that. So unless that happens, a video tomorrow. Yet, Esme, don't get too happy yet. Everything can happen. But so far, so good. Yeah, this is actually the only one that I have by him. And I think that I watched Jake's video. Well, I know that I watched Jake's video, but I think from that one, I got the conclusion that I can start with this one. It's not the one that he thinks is best, but it's okay. You don't really need any other books to understand what's happening. And I'm not allowed to buy any more of his books before I have at least tried this first one. Ah, yeah. I usually when I well, tomorrow I'm working from home, so I said that already. So I'm also doing groceries usually on Wednesdays just because I'm home. And when you go during noon, it's a little bit less crowded. And I like supermarkets that are not too crowded. But having to go grocery shopping after work, I hate it. Usually everybody does that after work, so nobody is extremely excited to be there. Everybody just wants to go home. Yeah, Black Friday until Christmas. Yeah. I I can definitely see that, Hans. It's the worst period. And I also think that they have to also use people who are not used to it because I think that they use job students for that. But those people are not used to working at the post anyway, so doing it at a very busy time, it's a recipe for disaster. Yeah, I'm going to be realistic about these things, and even though I always think that I will be reading more during the holidays, I will probably be reading less. So I don't think that the Priory of the Orange Tree is happening before the end of the year, but I'm going to give it another try. Maybe in summer. I have said this before, but I think that the cover of the book is for me it's fall because it has like those rich colors that you expect from leaves that are falling. But I think that everybody else thinks that this is a summer cover. So maybe I should give it another try during summer. It's one of those books, Priory of the Orange Tree, that I see a lot of mixed reviews about. Some people absolutely love it. Others say that it has at the very least some pacing issues. For me, those first 60 pages, from what I remember, I just wasn't really feeling it, and I was also new to fantasy. So it's multi POV, you have different parts of the world. So, of course, it's normal that 60 pages in, I wasn't really feeling anything yet. But at that time, I wasn't really understanding of that. So I DNF'd it. And honestly, I don't know what other book I was reading, but I wouldn't be surprised if I was reading the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb at the same time. So, I mean, you need to be a very good book for me to win against Farseer. Ooh, early next year. Okay, so maybe you will probably finish it before me because you're better at reading what you say you will. So please let me know how you like it, Hans. Happy to hear it, Emily. And if you ever want to join on stream, always welcome, of course. And that's for everybody who wants to. 45. Okay, so far I think that I'm okay with 45 as well. And then because if I want to switch between books, then we need 45 minutes, right? If 15 minutes in I decide that I want to switch books, I still won't have enough time to try my second book. Yeah, I Ooh, okay. So if you're going to read but Paramita, be honest here, you finish a book in 2 days. So I will definitely not be able to keep up with you. But if you read it at the beginning of the year and Hans is reading it at the beginning of the year, maybe I just need to join you guys for Priory. And then if I like it, I want to read the prequel because I love that cover. And yes, that's the reason that I wanted to give Priory another chance. That's the case with me and Mistborn Era 1. I loved that, but it was the first adult fantasy series that I've read after a 10-year break. So I don't know if that's because I was just so happy to reading fantasy again or if I actually liked Mistborn Era 1. I still think that it's a great introduction to fantasy, by the way. But yes, I don't want to reread it because I want to keep those memories fresh and intact. But are you going to reread it, Esme? I don't think that I've seen you say that yet, but maybe you also want to read the prequel. I don't know if anybody answered yet, but Guy Gabriel K is A Brightness Long Ago. I bought that one because I love the title. And I don't really know anything besides that it has a Venetian setting. I'm going to go back to see if I am Angry Robot. Nobody's saying anything about Angry Robot. Yes. Now I need to find my current position. I don't want it to end, so maybe I shouldn't listen to the ending right now, because then it's going to be difficult to continue with another book. But 8 minutes. I came home and I actually wanted to continue listening, but the dogs realized that I was home and they were barking in the yard, so I couldn't do it. Yeah, I don't think that I've came across a Robin Hobb fan who does not like Gay Gavel K, but of course there are always exceptions to the rules, but most people seem to like both of them. Finishing Room. Yeah, I hope you enjoy Subject 21, but I know what you mean. When you finish a book that leaves an impression, it's sometimes difficult to pick another one because you have book hangover, and sometimes it's also not fair to that new book because you're just not in the right headspace. And you're always going to compare it to that previous experience that you had. Oh, yeah. That oh, that makes me very afraid because I'm an extremely character-driven reader, and usually I don't really care that much about world building, magic system, or plot if I don't care what happens to the characters. So we'll see. Okay, so if I'm going to start with Liar's Knot, and Guy Gable K is also not that big of a book, so after I finish Liar's Knot, I should still have plenty of time to finish Guy Gable K afterwards. Ooh, City of Dragons. Well, Evie, I am going to start my reread in January, so I will finish Realm of the Elderlings hopefully by the end of this month, if I have time to finish the final audiobook. Otherwise, I will finish it in January, and I am going to jump into a reread right away, because I'm usually the type of person who does not really catch on to small hints. There's something that happens in Live Ship Traders, and apparently most people realize that while reading that series. I did not. So I'm just very excited to reread it and pick up all of those hints. So yeah, I'm probably going to be a serial rereader like Derry as well. But while I usually don't reread. So I'm a little bit nervous as well because 2023, two rereads of series that I've loved, but I normally don't reread, so we will see what happens there. Exactly. Hmm. I also don't really want to. Well, I'm going to give Priory another chance anyway, but it's what, an almost 900-page book. I'm probably going to be a little bit more strict with that. So if it's not superb, she should have written a 400-page book. And then it's okay if it's fine. But if you write 900 pages, I expect something amazing. I guess that I'm never really going to be quite done with all of the comments, but we're almost talking for half an hour. So let's say that at the very least, when we hit the 30-minute mark, we're going to start sprinting, right? 45 minutes. It's happening. It does, but if you maybe send me a picture on Discord, we can work it out because I had to work it out as well. But I bought mine on Amazon, the Dutch version, so maybe we can compare. I have a Canon, so I don't know if that works the same, but if it works, it's so much easier because a year ago, when I almost hit that 20-minute mark, I was so nervous and I started talking very fast, trying to just convey what I wanted to in a short amount of time. And that was not fun. So now I can just, if I mess up, which I do 5 to 10 times for one take, at least I should not worry that my camera is going to basically run out of batteries. Although now, with the cable that is having some issues, sometimes he just falls out because the cable is, well, the connection is lost, which is also not ideal. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can only read and or talk. It's one of the two. I'm not the best multitasker. So I'm just going through the chat. Gormenghast is one of those series. I know that Paramita has it as 1B of her all-time favorite series. So I want to give it a try, but at the same time, I think that I don't like to think too much when I'm reading. When I'm attached to characters, I just do it without thinking. But otherwise, when I have to work while reading, I usually don't like that. And I think that Gormenghast might be a little bit similar or have that same feeling. So I'm not really sold if I want to give that one a try or not. First, Broken Earth. I think that that's a little bit similar, where you also need to work for that read. But if Broken Earth works out, maybe Gormenghast after that. Let me know how that is because I've never heard of it before, but after you mentioned it, I went on Goodreads to look it up, and it sounds very interesting. And it's also an older novel. I think I'm going to show my age again, but I think it was from the 90s, which for the subject matter I found quite interesting. So now I'm intrigued. I have. And in December, I talked about this during my weekly updates. I do try to put out some December content that is for 2023, which is always extremely shameful for me when you then look back at the end of the year. Because I'm also going to have in January, I'm going to look back at 2022 and see what happened. I had a plans and goals video for 2022 that completely failed, but I am still going to do the same thing for 2023 because I like to make lists, I like to make goals and have something to work towards. But I have a couple of series that I want to start in 2023. I have standalones and I also have a couple of new releases, not too many, because last year I really looked it up. What are all the new releases that I'm interested in? Found some new releases that I wanted to read that I probably would have never heard of if I did not look it up prior to that. And having more than 20 new releases on the list that I want to give a try, on top of sequels and all of that, I just don't read enough for that. So the new releases, probably I'm only going to look at sequels of series that I'm already reading or new releases of favorite authors, but I'm not really going to look for them. Hi, Marlene. Is Beyond the Shadows a book in his Friend Weeks is from the Lightbringer series, right? I have that first book on my TBR, on my physical TBR, but I've never really tried it because I think, and I might be completely wrong here, that it's a little bit Sanderson-esque with a heavy, with a hard magic system. But I'm not sure if it's fair to compare the two just because they have a hard magic system. Are you reading it? Are you reading it? You are reading it, but are you enjoying it though? Okay, so we are almost 30 minutes in. Let's just start the sprints. So 45 minutes. Happy reading, everybody. Hi everyone. 45-minute sprint is done. How did all of you do? I finished the first chapter of The Liar's Knot, which is the first 30 pages, and I must say I'm very happy that I picked it up. I am still really in love with this world, but there's so much that I forgot. It's been long overdue, it seems, because even though that there is a small recap at start, which was extremely helpful because that's when I started realizing that I forgot a lot. Even after that, there are a lot of noble families here and they have a lot of different names, and sometimes they use the first name, sometimes they use the second name. And I have forgotten so many already that I do think I need to. They have at the start also this dramatis personae where you can look at all the different families and how the different members are called. So I think that I need to look at that a little bit. But still, happy that I finished those first 30 pages. And so far, they do a great job at just making you familiar with everything that happened, with one of the characters thinking about an event that happened in the first book, and just giving a little bit of texture, you could say. So, really happy with that. But it's been time since I picked this one up. Hi, glad that you could catch the stream. I'm also really enjoying reading sprints, but sometimes it's difficult to really get yourself to watch a stream that already happened because you can do that anytime. And I always have them in my watch later list just to get a little bit of inspiration. But if it doesn't happen on the moment, I always postpone it, which is not good. Ah, okay. Yeah, the Night Angel series is a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken. And I thought that I heard a couple of people say that they like the Lightbringer series. Don't know how that's called. Is it called Lightbringer? Because I think that that's the first book. I think that they like that one more than Night Angel. Hi, Raf. Glad you could join. Hi, Stacy. You're on your lunch break? Well, I maybe by now your lunch break is finished, but the library at Mount Char and the Caillou Preservation Society, I have not heard of either of those. But confused and intrigued is an emotion that I understand for most books. City of Dragons is the third book in the Rainwild Chronicles. Wait, Dragon Haven, Dragon Keeper. I think it's, or is it the fourth one? I read that quartet 2 months ago, I think. Maybe I think that I finished it in October or September, but somehow all series they blend together in one big pile. I know what happened in the Rainwild Chronicles. I do not know what happened in each book separately. But I liked it. I must say that I did not really like that subseries as much as the other books in the Realm of the Elderlings, but I still think that people judge it way too harshly because if you just read that on its own, it's still a really good series. It's just in comparison with everything else in the Realm of the Elderlings, it can't really compete, but I still really enjoyed it. And now that I am reading Fitz and the Fool, and especially in the second book, there is some connection to the Rainwild Chronicles. And even though you don't really need that because you're watching everything from Fitz's POV, as always, and he doesn't really know what happened in the books of the Rainwild Chronicles, I like having that extra insight and knowing more than what Fitz knows. Yes, I need that because often people tell me, well, I couldn't do what you do reading different installments of series months in between or even with a pause of multiple years because I don't really have a great memory. And then I'm thinking, well, I don't have a great memory either. I'm just not a good planner, I suppose. So seeing more and more series doing these recaps because I know that the Song of the Shattered Sand series also does that. It's really is a given. And the Song of the Shattered Sand series even does more, but I don't know if the Rook and Rose trilogy is going to do that as well because this is just a sequel. There's only one previous book. But the Song of the Shattered Sand series actually gives a recap of each of the previous books. So in the fourth book, you have a recap of 1, 2, and 3, which I can really appreciate. 2%. That's good. 25 pages. And are you enjoying what you're reading, Jeroen? If your brain is not into reading, and even if you're doing the sprints, because sometimes I feel like you need to push yourself to read, and once you start reading, it goes very smoothly. But if you already did that during reading sprints and it's not happening, no, it's really not worth it to push yourself. Maybe you can do some, I want to say painting, but that's not it. You draw, right? Maybe you can draw some art, Hans. It's always good to have multiple hobbies. And I can definitely relate with what you're saying because after a work day, and I'm guessing you're in the Netherlands, you also came home from work. It's been a long day. It's almost 8:30 right now. If your brain is tired, it's tired, and it's better to do something that doesn't really require too much activity. Ooh, The Invisible Library is one of those series. I bought the first book because it's a short one and it's very much out of my comfort zone, which sounds a bit silly because it's still fantasy. So not that much, but I have a very specific type, and it seems like The Invisible Library is not something that I would normally pick up, but I think that it's a fun read to read in between, and I still haven't really started it. So, but The Lost Plot is one of the later installments in the series, so I suppose that you're really enjoying it. Yes, you need to. The Dresden Files is one of those series that I think are also great palate cleansers, but I don't think that I'm going to like it. I don't like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Is it Vampire Slayer or Vampire Killer? I don't like Buffy. And I think that you need to like something like that. I don't like urban fantasy, so I don't think the Dresden Files would be for me. But I can really appreciate what they do because it's 20 books long right now and it's going to be more, but they're quite short. You can easily read them in between, if I'm not mistaken. We need more fantasy series like that. Discworld, of course, is one that I often compare with, even though I haven't read those two, but I feel like they're a little bit similar in that sense. But yes, you need to pick up Live Ship Traders. I think that most people would probably like Live Ship Traders. I often see that as a favorite among Robin Hobb fans. I like the Fitz books more, but I think that for the more typical fantasy, Realm of the Elderlings, Live Ship Traders is the better work with multiple POVs and stuff like that. I'm just a sucker for character-driven stories, and their Fitz is top notch. Yes, at the same time, it is quite fitting for their age and what was going on at the time. But I could have done with less of Time Aura. Ooh, what is the general fiction book that you started? Ah, just an okay read is never what you're hoping for when you pick up a book. But how do you pronounce it? Is it Ammonite? And does it mean something, or is it? I don't speak English like perfectly, so Ammonite. I don't know if that's an actual word. Perfect. Have fun gaming, Hans, and thanks for stopping by. That's the thing. Sometimes when you have long books, if it's great, it's great. But if it's a long book and it overstays its welcome, you start questioning, why are you so long? Yeah. Yeah. I do hope that the ending is going to make up for a lot, though, actually. Marleen, I have a lot of hot takes apparently, and every time I mention something like this, the second afterwards, I think, I think that a lot of people who are watching right now will not understand how my mind works. But I must say that part of it is probably also because I think I'm a little bit too young for it. I have like Dawson's Creek, which is it's not fantasy, but my sister was a big fan of Buffy and she was a big fan of Dawson's Creek and she's 8 years older than me. So I think that that might have something to do with it that I was just too young. And even Dawson's Creek, I tried watching it when I was a younger teenager myself. Just couldn't do it. Ooh. Oh, forgetting to recharge your e-reader really is a pain. I have mine. laying next to the dogs, and I'm wondering if I have The Liar's Knot on my e-reader because that would be easier to read. But at the same time, I think that I haven't charged it either. But as long as you have another book close by and you're enjoying it, that's all that matters. So I am guessing that you are from France. And Babel is one that I would also really like to try. I have not tried Dark Academia for the longest time, and then recently I read Ninth House, really enjoyed that one. I have heard that Babel is not your typical Dark Academia, but that it has a similar vibe, so that if you like it, you probably like Babel as well. So I want to give it a try. And plus, I really enjoyed the Poppy War trilogy. I know that a lot of people don't. I don't think that the writing style was the strongest, but at the same time, I really enjoyed that trilogy as a whole. And that first book, The Poppy War, is still one of my favorites. I'm sorry. I haven't even watched a lot of it, but I think that part of it is the aesthetic, which is 90s slash early 2000s, maybe, which I just really don't like. Another one that's quite similar is probably Charmed with the Three Witches. That was another favorite of my sister that I did not like. Oh, okay. I probably need to look up that series because the fourth book is not the last one, right? Are multiple out at the moment? Or is it still ongoing? Well, multiple are out. I mean, are others out after the fourth one? And is it finished already? Hmm. That is a very weird mix. The Da Vinci Code and Lord of the Rings. Okay. If it works, it works. But that it's a weird book, I'm not surprised you saying that after seeing that combination. Ooh, thanks for the for the lesson, Hans. I probably should know that as well, as somewhat of a scientist, but okay. Mhm, mhm. Well, I read the premise of Ammonite and I really liked it. But if Paramita said that it was just an okay book, I'm not the biggest sci-fi reader anyway, so I only pick up sci-fi books that people say are absolutely amazing because otherwise I will probably not continue. Ooh, an octopus POV. That sounds out of the box for sure. Yeah, I think that it's one of those things like I loved One Tree Hill, which is more for my generation. And even though I probably could only rewatch it now for nostalgia, I really enjoyed it when I was growing up. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I only watched it when I had to because my sister had access to the television. So maybe I'm a little bit biased because of that. My sister was the boss in our family, or at least she was the boss of me. Yes, exactly. My sister was you had Dawson, and I think that a lot of the teenage girls were Dawson fans, but my sister was is his name Casey? He was the bad boy. I think that my sister was a fan of him. Yeah, I think that I heard about Dresden that in the beginning Harry is a very unlikable character because he is quite a bit of a sexist, if I'm not mistaken. But afterwards, there's more to the series than what you would expect from the first couple of books. That's what I've heard. But everything about it, even if it's a great series, it just doesn't really appeal to me. Ah, there. I would probably not like Dresden. Work is busy. Towards the end of the year, it seems like everything needs to happen. And I'm always wondering why nobody realized that in September and start giving out tasks. No, everybody waits until the end of November slash beginning of December to start talking about a lot of stuff. Today I also got a mail of somebody who I'm maintaining a website and it's like my side task. I never really look at it. And then today I got a mail like, oh, there's a deadline towards the end of the week. Could you update the entire website? You're not telling me that you only heard of that today. So maybe schedule a little bit better. But okay, it's also my fault because I don't really look at that much. Okay, so maybe I'm not entirely objective here, but I loved Xena. I loved Xena a lot. She's now the ex girlfriend of my brother. It's been 20 years, I think, but she had everything of Xena on tape. Not DVDs were not a thing back then, so she recorded everything, and I was allowed to watch it. Xena and I think Hercules was it was like a side track of Xena, but I really enjoyed that one as well. But Xena was, yes, top notch. And I would probably still enjoy rewatching that, even though it's been years at this point. Oh, yes, from Belgium. Perfect. Well, I am also from Belgium, but I do not speak a word of French. So I immediately jump to conclusions when somebody's speaking French. But yes, you could also be a Belgian. Oh, okay. That is interesting because I'm still making my list for series to start in 2023. And last year I had 15 series on the list, which that was never going to happen. I can see that now. But this year I want to be a little bit more realistic with just having 10. So I need to make some smart decisions. But a series like that, I think would be easy to just squeeze in from time to time. I think that I'm also going to put Discworld on the list just because of that. Because I think that if I get into a reading slump, if I just forget that I'm reading Discord for a couple of months, that's not really an issue. I think that that's a series that you can be pretty loose with your schedule, unlike something like Malazan, which I have realized that I'm not the kind of person who can read Malazan at this point in time. I have never watched an episode of Doctor Who, and at this point, I know that there are so many fans who say that it's an absolutely amazing series, but I don't know where to start because I also don't really know a lot about it. I know that there's been multiple doctors, but do you need to watch from the start or can you just start watching a new season with a new doctor and that's okay? At the same time, I don't think that it's my type of series either, but I just want to give it a try because a lot of people are absolutely in love with it. But I feel like I missed the train and now it's too difficult to hop back on. And Merlin, I think that I watched that when I was younger. I also watched Shannara. I really enjoyed that series, even though I've never really read the original books. And I think that a lot of people absolutely hate the Shannara series, but I really enjoyed it. Just too many series. At this point, even if it's a series that I might like, I only try to pick up series that I'm almost positive that I will like. And if you then don't like it, of course, the disappointment is all the bigger, but there are just too many. That's so strange. To be honest, when I did not have Netflix yet, so I just turned on the TV and if whatever was on, that was what I was watching. I probably jumped into the middle of certain series without even noticing it as well. I think that Shannara, for certain, I did not start watching season one because I was just watching some mindless TV and I saw that Shannara was on. And at that time, I think it was MTV or something like that. It had the entire night Shannara was going to air, like the entire season. And I think that I watched a couple of hours, just jumping into the middle and enjoying it. Well, I am trying to find the audiobooks. And I think that I found a library where I can listen to the audiobooks because mine, well, my subscription service Storytel, it has The Wee Man and everything after that, but it doesn't have the first ones. And I either want to do that, start with Magic, The Color of Magic, because that's the one that I own, and I also own the second one already because somebody gifted that one to me. So either like that or Hogfather Mort. I think that are two that you can listen to as standalones. But at least I don't want to start with the Wee Man, which is number 33 or something like that, and I've never really heard of it. So I will see. But I think that Discworld is the type of series that if I'm going to listen on audio, I'm going to probably have a great time. Because I think that's going to be my type of humor. I've heard that, and then I've also heard fans of the series say that it's amazing. But I think that Night Angel is the type of trilogy that a lot of people also use to get into adult fantasy. So part of it is probably also nostalgia. Hmm. Okay. So maybe I should look that up after I finish my reread. I wanted to say my rewatch of A Game of Thrones. I'm rewatching that with my husband, and this goes to show how much TV we watch. I think that we started 3 weeks ago, and we're still at episode 4. We should really watch an episode this evening. But so far, I've been enjoying it more than I thought, because usually everybody who talks about a Game of Thrones, and when you complain about the last seasons, they say, well, rewatch the first season. It's not good. It was extremely cheap, and you're not going to like that either. But I'm really enjoying it so far. And even though it was probably cheap, I don't think that it looks that way. So I'm having a great time, but it's been over a week since I watched it. The Lady Trent series is one that I have on my wish list, because now that I'm reading Liar's Knot and Brooke and Rose, I think that that's written by the author who has written the Lady Trent series, or at least M.A. Carrick is an author duo, and one of the two is that author. So I want to give it a try, because it's also that type of series with shorter books, and I think that they're set in the Victorian era, or at least influenced by that. And I think that that would be different and fun to read in between. But yes, I am a big I'm not the best fantasy reader, because I love reading first books in a series. Because even though I'm very character driven reader, I also love getting to know characters. So I'm always excited, because there's the possibility that it might be a favorite series. And then once I've read that first one, I still want to read the sequel, but it's not as high on my priority list as another first in a series. So I'm terrible at actually continuing and finishing series, even if I really like the first installment. So I completely understand what you mean. Good to hear that I'm not the only one. Okay. That's I am going to keep that in mind, because we usually have a couple of series that we really like watching, but then when a new season is ended, we don't really know what to do with our TV watch time. We watched Stranger Things, for example, when the last season, season 4, was on Netflix, and we just had 2 weeks off. We watched that one with one episode each day, which is a lot for us. But then that stopped, and we didn't really know what to do with our time. So maybe Doctor Who is another great one to add to the list. And we should also still finish Sandman. I think we got halfway through, and then for whatever reason we stopped watching. Probably because some other fantasy series were also airing at the same time, because we don't watch that fast, so it takes us a while to get to through one season. And then we never really went back. Hmm. Okay, that's good. I know that a lot of people say that The Color of Magic is not great to start with Terry Pratchett, but then I think Raf and Paramita, if I'm not mistaken, they both said that it's not at the same level as everything else. And if you end up disliking The Color of Magic, please still give other of his books a chance. But it's not bad to start with in any sense, especially because if you would have started reading at publication order when he was writing them, you didn't really have any other choice than to go by publication order, and then you would have to start with the Color of Magic. So I always think that that's the safest option. It's the order that he wrote it in. Maybe just go by that. Enjoy your dinner. Bye. Glad that you could join us. By the way, I don't know how long we already are talking now since we had the last sprints, but I'm guessing that we should maybe start another one. So if you guys are ready for either 45 minutes or 30 minutes, please let me know what you prefer. And then I can continue reading, and probably also read a little bit of the different people who are in this world, the dramatis personae. Because, yes, I know that this was the right choice, but I am struggling a little bit knowing what's happening here. Still reading some essays, Raf. Is this for another video of yours? I think Elders of Zion, that is probably another video of yours that you're going to do. I do hope that you're not getting too frustrated, because I love that you have a very critical take on a lot of things that on BookTube it doesn't really happen that much, but you still need to enjoy what you're doing. Okay, 45. Yes. Let's do 45. Okay. Raf then. I think that it was Raf. And I think that also Alan, when I was on Steve's Talk Books Friday conversation, I mentioned it, and Alan just said, The Color of Magic is not the same as his other works, but it's fine to start there. I have not. Okay. That's interesting. I know that I only did that one vlog about Stardust where I read the book and then watched the movie, but I still think that that's a very neat idea to do both. I still have The Princess Bride on my TBR because I've never read that one and I've never seen the movie. But maybe The Color of Magic is another one that I should add because I had no idea that there was a movie about it. Okay, perfect. I don't know which timer I used last time, but I think that this is, well, it's the one that you saw last week if you were still here, but not the one that we had for the first sprints. So happy reading and catch you in 45 minutes. I was starting to talk, but apparently I was still muted. However, now I should be audible. 45 minutes passed. How did everybody do? I finished the second chapter, currently reading the third one of The Liar's Knot. So, again, 30 pages. Really enjoying it so far. This was easier than the first chapter because in the first one we got a lot of names and now we have the same main characters. Although I still don't really know what's going to be the plot of this book. It is 630 pages and I'm only 60 pages in, so I guess I have a little bit more time to get through this and to understand what's happening. But I am really enjoying the world, I'm enjoying the politics already. So, yes, happy that I picked it up. And I do hope that my pace will quicken a little bit because otherwise it will probably take me 2 weeks to finish this one. And I hope that I can get into it and read big chunks just days at a time. 6% more. I hope that you're enjoying it a little bit more. I think that at the beginning you said this was fine, but nothing really amazing. Perfect. So that means that for next sprints, I can probably stay here, which is the easiest way to set everything up. Again, if some of you are on my Discord, you know that I bought this little side table for my couch because that's easier when I have a mug of warm drinks to put it on a table instead of balancing it on the couch because it happened multiple times that I did that and that one of the dogs jumped on the couch and well, coffee everywhere. So I bought this very small table, but then I saw that it was perfect to hold my laptop for when I'm live streaming. So this is actually easier if I can stay here instead of having to put everything on my table, dinner table, where I used to stream before. So perfect if this works fine. 5 pages to go until the end of part 3. You should be able to finish that later this evening, right, Jeroen? I don't know how late you normally go to bed, but 5 pages should be doable. Hi, Chris. Glad you were able to join. And did you read anything for those full 45 minutes? I tried to read for the full 45, but the dogs were asking some attention. As always, we always have one. I don't know why, but they're, well, I count myself lucky, but they are very, very quiet. Usually, when I'm doing a live stream, one of the two can be a little bit barky and snarky at the beginning. I don't know why. But usually when I'm talking, it's fine. And then when I stop talking, they both come and have a look. What's happening? Why am I quiet all of a sudden? So I had to pet one. And then, of course, I had to pet the other one as well, because otherwise, jealousy is a big thing with these two. But now that I'm talking again, I see one of them falling asleep on my e reader, which is typical to be honest. And the other one is blocking the door, which is also typical. I don't know why he does this, but he always goes and lays in front of a door, and then when somebody comes in, he acts all as if you're the one who is at fault, as if you're the one who's being rude, while he could just sleep somewhere where he's not in the way. But well, dogs. Ooh, perfect. How many parts does your book have, Jeroen? Is part 4 the last one? Yes, 2 chapters. Perfect. And are you enjoying what you're reading at the moment, Shadia? Ooh, perfect. I don't really remember, Chris, but is this your first time reading Game of Thrones? Or is it also a reread for you? I had the most difficult time not starting Game of Thrones. Because I mentioned this, I was rewatching Game of Thrones after I watched House of the Dragon. And when I started watching, I actually wanted to read the House of the Dragon Fire and Blood book before I started the series, the TV show. But then I got into a reading slump, so I didn't really do that on time. So in the end, I started watching the show and then I read the book a little bit at the same time. And then I was in my Game of Thrones mood again. So I really had to stop myself from starting A Song of Ice and Fire too soon because for me it's a reread, so I want to stick to the schedule. And the fun thing is there are 2 rereads going on, which is one is with Joanna and Alex and Scott. And then we also have, of course, the read on Steve's channel. And he's going to read it for the first time. So that is quite exciting because I think that he's going to love it. To be honest, I think that most people would love A Song of Ice and Fire. If you're fantasy fans, there's not really a lot to criticize about it, but it has been over a decade since I've read it, so I'm a little bit curious upon a reread if I would still be as positive about it, or that there may be something that I don't really like. But yeah, honestly, can't wait for January and rereading that first book. Ooh, two more essays. How long are these essays? I can imagine that one page of such an essay requires a little bit more brain power than a fantasy book. So, two essays done. That's good. Ooh, 40 pages done. Great. That's a pretty high speed, right? 40 pages, 45 minutes. Good job. And then 40 pages and you're finished with the book. Great. Ooh, 6 parts in total. Okay. But once you're past that halfway point, at least that's how I feel for most books, that's when I get on a usual reading spree. And that second half goes by a lot faster than the first one. Wow. When did the first A Song of Ice and Fire book came out? Is it probably in the 90s, right? I think that it's around the same time of Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which is early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I can really see why it would feel like a first time read. To be honest, I don't really remember too much about the books. There are some things that I vividly remember being in the books and not being in the TV show, but for the most part, it has really merged in my brain, and I don't know what's one and I don't know what's the other. So it's going to feel like a first time read as well, but then just by somebody who has watched the entire TV show. So I do know some things that are happening, but yeah, a lot of it I missed, especially because when I read it, it was my first fantasy series that I picked up. I think it's either this one or The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I read those two around the same time, and I was definitely not a seasoned fantasy reader. I know that I loved the series, but nothing really stuck for more than a decade. Yeah, that's for the longest time I said I'm not going to reread the series until Winds of Winter gets announced. But at this point, I have lost hope a little bit. If Winds of Winter ever gets announced, great. I'll probably reread it for a third time. But for now, if it never gets announced, I still want to re experience the series. And since a lot of people were reading it, are going to read it next year anyway, it sounded like the perfect timing just to talk with people because it is the perfect series to discuss with other people and to see what they think. And the mix of rereaders and first time readers is going to be pretty exciting, I think. Ooh, okay. That's a nice setting. I think that it might be a little bit too modern for me, but at the same time, huh, I might have to look that one up. How far along are you with your reread? I I think that I need the group read and the read along as well because otherwise I would probably reread the first book and then wait too long to jump into the second one. And yeah, I know that for the A Song of Ice and Fire series, I've said a couple of times that I only read them once. That's not true, but when I read them for the first time, I did not own other books, so I read through all of them, and then I started the first one again. But it was so close that it's also a decade ago, and I never really continued. I don't really know why. It's the same with TV shows. When I rewatch the first season, and that's it. So I need to read along to take me from start to finish. Yes, I'm so happy that you're liking it, Madeleine. I It's been too long, but I think that the second one or the third one was my favorite. I think that the first three were superb, and then the last two, I had some difficulties with. Still 5 stars at the time, and I think that my difficulties were maybe because I was just reading them so soon after another that maybe there was just a little bit of burnout of the series. But I do vividly remember enjoying the first three most of all. Okay, 20 pages per essay. It's been a long time since I've read anything nonfiction that's not scientific in nature, but I do not read articles that fast. Exactly. It always takes a little bit to get acquainted to the series to know all of the characters. And then once that happens and once you're invested, you just read faster. Ooh, 1994. That's almost 30 years at this point. I I am curious to see, but with Robin Hobb and the Farseer series and the entire realm of the Outer Rings, I never really felt that I could feel a difference between the first one and what I'm reading right now, even though there is more than 20 years between. But maybe upon a reread, I guess that there is some growth in the author if 20 years have passed. But I never really noticed that. But at the other hand, I am so invested in Fitz's storyline that I don't really notice other details. Ooh, okay. That's not the most uplifting read, but it does make you read quite fast, I suppose, because you want to know what happens afterwards. Okay, so pretty soon after release, because I think that A Song of Ice and Fire among fantasy fans was quite well known, I think, but it took until after the series to become one of the most well known fantasy series out there. At this point, it's probably Lord of the Rings, A Song of Ice and Fire, and something by Brandon Sanderson. That's like top three of most well known, more or less modern fantasy series. Okay, yeah, perfect. That does give me hope that I might like it as well. As long as it doesn't feel modern, that's what matters. I understand how that feels. I think that my reread, well, one book per month, I'm curious to see what happens because I normally don't reread. And when I do reread my favorite book, Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Merlier, I kind of skim read and I stop at my favorite passages. But when we were discussing that over at Steve's Friday conversation, another guest mentioned that they actually take longer upon a reread because they notice all of the details, they notice all of the foreshadowing, and they read it deeper than they would on a first try. So I don't really know what I'm going to do because I'm not the biggest rereader. So I'm curious. I do plan to maybe vlog it, but I don't know if it's going to be spoiler filled or spoiler free because I think spoiler filled will be a little bit difficult, but spoiler free will also be difficult. So I'll probably just have another poll on my community tab to ask all of you what I should do. Winds of Winter in 2025 would make me very happy. And then Doors of Stone, is that the third one in the Kingkiller Chronicles? Well, if we're wishing for Winds of Winter, I also want Doors of Stone to happen. Although I have higher hopes that Winds of Winter is going to be a high quality book than Doors of Stone, because I enjoyed The Name of the Wind more than The Wise Man's Fear, from what I remember. And I don't know, with George R. R. Martin, I just think that he's a major perfectionist and he has a lot of other work laying around right now that he also needs to get to. But I think once he finishes that book, it will be high in quality. While with Patrick Rothfuss, I don't know. I think that he doesn't really know how to end the series. And it is a trilogy, right? I think that he recently being more than a year ago, he did mention something that this is just the prologue of a bigger fantasy series, but originally it was going to be a trilogy. And I don't see how he's going to neatly tie everything up in just one last book. Yeah, no idea. But I also don't really read as critically as some people do. So curious to see if I notice something like that upon a reread. 2027, it would be a long wait, but we're used to that at this point, so I guess we'll be fine. Yeah, I don't really have any experience with that, so I can't say, but I would say that if it's academic in nature, if it's scientific history or social sciences, it reads just as slow, no matter what the discipline is. And probably for me, history and social sciences would read slower because I don't really have the background knowledge that is required. Okay. Yeah, this is far before I got into fantasy, so I have no idea. I know when I was looking up fantasy, Well, I was the type of person for the longest time who wanted to read, and then I went into a bookstore and I bought a book because it looked cool, but somehow I never really took time to read until 2 or 3 years ago. We were having the holiday season around Christmas. I had too much time on my hands, and I had two books that I had owned for years at this point. First one was The Grimm Company by Luke Scull, and the second one was The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. So I started reading those two just because I owned them, and I bought them on a whim. Didn't know anything about Brandon Sanderson, and Luke Scull is not a very well known author, I think. So that's when I started looking up other fantasy series. Like, this is amazing. Maybe there's something on the internet. And then I found BookTube. So at the time that I got into BookTube and fantasy and all of that, A Song of Ice and Fire was already a well established name. And I think at the time that I got into BookTube, the Brent Weeks series as well as Demon Cycle. Demon Cycle is by Peter V. Brett. I think that was also one that was talked about quite a bit. I want to be hopeful, Paramita, but at the same time, you've got to be realistic about those things. So, yeah, I don't know. Still, it's again one of those series that I should reread at some point because both A Song of Ice and Fire and The Kingkiller Chronicles I read in Dutch. And I don't know if that had a big influence and if the translation was good or if reading it in the original language is going to make it even a better experience. Yeah, of course, when you're reading it upon release, you're going to reread what already came out. So the first ones, it's it's the same as what we did for the TV show. The first TV show seasons, we rewatched a lot of times because every time the new season was released, we rewatched the previous ones. But I was very lucky in the sense that the final book that is currently out of A Song of Ice and Fire just came out when I started my journey. So I was able to binge read the entire series. And then started my wait, which at this point we're all waiting. That's probably going to be a big factor, yeah. The Lord of the Rings movies. I remember watching those on the big screen actually, and I think that the first one came out around 2000 or 2001. So I was 6 or 7 and I could not read fast enough to read the subtitles. But I do remember really enjoying the movie just because I thought that it looked really nice. And even though I could not understand half of what was said, I had a general picture of the entire story and I enjoyed it. The funny thing is also that at that time, you couldn't really, or you probably could, but your first impulse when you wanted to go to the movies wasn't, let's look it up online and we know everything and we can see a trailer and all of that. We just opened like the newspaper and we watched or we looked for the program in our local movie theater. And that one was on. It was a fantasy. We thought, well, my parents thought that that was going to be kid friendly, so let's take the entire family. And we were so disappointed when it stopped and it was not the end because we didn't know that that was part one of a three-part movie. So yeah, then we were in, and we had to wait for the second one to come out. But I remember being extremely annoyed when all of a sudden the screen was black and that was the end of the movie, but it wasn't really an ending. I These ones are the Dutch editions. So they're still in hardcover, but I don't think that you can get those. So I'm very happy that I have them because I actually do think that they look nice, even though they are pretty simple. And I think that the overall cover is the same as what you guys have for the UK or the US, but having them in hardcover is nice. Well, I must say that I don't even know where the story ended at this point because it's been so long. I know the first book, Weissman's Fear, Name of the Wind. I remember more what happened there, which I think means that the second one didn't grab me as much. Because, and probably also that I read the first one twice, because when I read the first one, The Name of the Wind, the second one was not out yet, or at least it was not translated in Dutch yet. So I had to wait for the second one. So I read the first one twice, probably. Don't even remember. But that might also be the reason why I remember the first one better. That is very sad to hear because I read the first chapter in the first book, The Painted Man, and I did enjoy it. But I have heard a couple of times that the first book is good and then the second one is a little bit weird, but after that it goes even more downhill. So I don't know. I do think that I'm still going to put it on my 2023 reading list just because I own the first book and I want to give it a try. But I also keep in mind the possibility that I will not finish it, especially if it goes downhill in quality. I'm not going to push through another series. After Broken Empire by Mark Lawrence completely left me into a reading slump, and I had to push through those three books. And to be honest, I still feel a lot of regret that I didn't just DNF that series. After that, if I don't like Demon Cycle, I'm just going to DNF it. Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson is still, even though I have disliked his other works, well, some of his other works, because I still really enjoy Wargbreaker, really enjoy Elantris, and Mistborn Era 1, I enjoyed that one. And I don't know how I would feel about it upon a reread, but I thought it was pretty fresh. But I also think that if I would read it now for the first time, I might pick up on some things that for me, when I read it, they were twists. And I didn't know that that was something that fantasy could do. So I don't know. But at the time, I liked it. Yeah, I thought something like that. I saw Elders of Zion in one of those titles, and yeah, Rav is still at it. Yeah, I remember that I really liked the writing style in The Name of the Wind. I don't really remember Wise Man's Fear, but I suppose that it's similar. So either the translator did a really good job, or I'm going to be very surprised when I pick them up in English. But Martin, for it's going to happen because there at least I have the first three books in English. For The Name of the Wind and the other one, I don't have them. I only have the Dutch editions so far. So that reread will have to wait. Yeah. I don't have the highest hopes either. But one of the plus sides of being somebody who takes years to finish a series is I don't really care that much anymore if a series gets finished or if it's finished at the time that I read it, because if I'm having fun while reading it, it's fine. Of course, it's another matter if it ends on a cliffhanger. Hate that. But if it sort of wraps up that book in the series, I'm fine with waiting. Truth be told, there are a lot of series that are currently finished by the author, and it's my fault that I haven't finished it. So I'm not going to be difficult with Martin or Rothfuss or any of the other authors. And I am going to give J.B. Jones's series, Cavern of Black Ice, is either the first book or it's the name of the title of the series. I'm going to give that one a chance next year, even though I think only 4 books are currently out and it should be a 6-book long series. If those first 4 are good, I'm going to have a good time. Thanks, Chris. A lot of people have asked me where they can buy them, and well, they are the Dutch ones. I must say that they are probably a little bit too colorful for the subject matter, but I don't care because I really like having colors on the shelves. Huh. If that's a possibility, I'll probably do that for sure. But at the same time, if I like that first one, I know that I'm not smart enough to stop. I'll probably give that second one a chance. And then at the end, when I DNF it, I'll say, Chalia, you were right. I should have listened to you. But if I like the first book, I am going to continue reading. But it's good to know that at least it wraps up more or less. Yeah, I've heard about that. And I I must say that usually I don't really mind that subject matter, but if it's done in a very tasteless way, yeah, of course, I'm going to have issues there. But I never really know if people complain about that, if they don't like that full stop, or if it is done very tasteless. Ah, damn. Yeah, I suspected something like that. I think that a lot of strength in that series comes from that it encourages, or it's a perfect segue from YA fantasy to adult, or from for people who are new to fantasy. But I yeah, it probably does not hold up upon a reread. But to be honest, I'm somebody who does not reread anyway, so it needs to be an all-time favorite book for me to make that worth trouble. Oh, that's a shame. That does make me reconsider if I want to put it on my list for next year. Because I do have quite a bit of firsts of a series on my shelves. And if there's one that's already going to be, well, there's a high chance that I'm going to DNF the series somewhere in the middle. Maybe I should prioritize some other ones. Yeah, I think that for Malazan, at the very least, I don't know what would have been the best course of action for me, but I do know that one book per month was not it. That was just too much, especially because Malazan is a series that I can appreciate, and but it's not the type of series that I gravitate towards and that I read from. Well, it's if I read it, I need to have a long break and read some other things because it does require quite a bit of brain power. And reading one Malazan book per month, in the end, I was not reading anything else. And that stressed me out. I needed to have some resting days and reading a fairy tale, but I didn't have the time for that. And now it's been so long, also because I was rushing through it. I think it would have been better if I just gave myself a little bit more time and remembered more and really savored some of the things and think about some theories, stuff like that. So I am going to give Malazan another try, but not anytime soon because I need to reread at least the third book again and probably the first two as well. Basically, just start from scratch. I have seen some people talking about, I think that's Matt on Books. He said something about a PowerPoint file for each of the books, and it talks about the different chapters, and it really tells you everything. So it's a nice summary to have at hand when you're doing the read. But I thought just using that PowerPoint as a reread, and that doesn't work because it's just bullet points. So you need to at least remember what's going on. Just using that, at least for me, it didn't work. Okay, yeah, that's what I was worrying about. If it's done in such a tasteless way, I'm probably not going to enjoy the series. And then on top of all the other problematic representation, it's going to be annoying after a while. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of these things I sometimes don't notice, but once somebody points it out to me and I start noticing it, yeah. Ooh, all of Guy Gavriel K. He has written a lot, right? But you also read fast, Ruff. So I just hope that the A Brightness Long Ago, that one I can at least give a try before the end of the year. And it's not that long of a book. And that was one of the small goals that I had this year was at least try Guy Gavriel K. So if I can do that, like for the final days of the year, I can finally reach that goal, I'm going to be happy. Well, strangely enough, so many people warned me about Malazan that I thought I was not going to understand anything. And that first book, I understood just fine. Probably also because when I felt a little bit lost, I thought, well, this is normal for the series. So after finishing that first book, I was a little bit relieved that I understood more than I was expecting. And then the second one was so character driven that I had zero issues with that one. But the third one, I'm having a difficult time with. Probably because I underestimated it. I think that the third one, in terms of world building, is probably the most difficult one up until this point. And like I said, I was not reading them deeply enough. So after a while, that catches up with you. If you read the first one just fine, that's okay. If you read the second one with not a lot of background knowledge, okay. But if you then go into the third one and not really remembering a lot for the first two, yeah, that's not it. But I do think that the way you read Paramita, that you will like the second one at the very least more than the first one. Yeah, I think that one of the things that also just gave me the wrong idea was that somebody said that the third one was the easiest one for them to get through. So I thought, well, I already had an okay time with one and two, so three is going to be fine. And then that one was the one that for me was the most difficult. But I also think that I'm not a very typical Malazan fan because I am a very character driven reader. I usually don't like military fantasy that much. So I probably had different things that I liked. And I liked Death House Gates most of all. But I do think that that's a fan favorite, if I'm not mistaken. Death House Gates and Memories of Ice, I hear a lot about, which could also be because they're the earlier ones and nobody gets to the later ones. Okay, we can be rereaders for the first time together, Jeroen. Oh, okay. You two copies of book two. I do hope that you can also find book one, because otherwise it's going to be a little bit difficult. But you do have, well, I bought the mass market paperbacks on Amazon because they are quite cheap, but they're also very difficult to read from. Like mass market paperbacks are a pain anyway, but these ones had, I don't know if that's a problem with how they were manufactured, but when I was reading it, pages came loose. So that's an issue. And I don't have that with all mass market paperbacks, but I felt like all of those had that issue. So I'm probably going to read it on e reader if I really get into the series. Yes, exactly, Chris. And it's fine if you're on a reading sprint and you're reading 10 books a month. But then when you get into a little bit of a sprint, and especially Malazan, Malazan books take me 2 weeks if I'm not reading anything else. And if I'm still making good progress and if I'm still reading every day, I think that a lot of people don't really realize how many words are actually on a page and how much slower, at least for me, and I've heard that from other people as well, your reading speed slows down when you're reading Malazan. And that's not because you're not enjoying it, it just takes a while. Ooh, happy birthday already. Getting books for your birthday is top notch. I do hope that you can get to some of them. Have you already gotten the books or do you need to wait until tomorrow? I think that I will have to look at the preferred reading list for Guy Gabriel Kay that Jake made just to see if I like A Brightness Long Ago, what I should do just to be best off. But I think that Lines of Al Ghassan is another one that you can read separately from his other works. Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't know what's best because at this point I have so many other things that I want to read that I'm not the type of person who can focus on one series and that's it. So if that's what Malazan requires, I'm going to have to put it on hold until I've read some other things that have been on my wish list and TBR for way too long. And then maybe there needs to be a Malazan centered year, but it's not going to be 2023. Yeah, I do agree with that. And especially, I've only read 2.5 books, so not really the expert here, but especially for the first book. I think that the series gets more difficult as you get further in, and you really need to treat it as a priority if you want to keep everything straight for 10 books. But that first book is not as difficult as people say that it is, at least in my opinion. That's why I didn't like it, Raf. It's the most traditional one. By the way, you guys, it's 10 p.m. here, so I am probably going to go to bed quite soon. The two dogs are fast asleep here. Well, one of them is. I don't really know where the other one is, but he's quiet, so he's probably going to be asleep somewhere. But just to get up in time tomorrow morning, so I'm done with work fast enough to film and to go grocery shopping, I probably need to get to sleep quite soon. So thank you all just in advance for being here for the reading sprints, and I hope to see all of you next um, Tuesday Probably Tuesday, maybe Mondays. We'll see what is best for all of you guys because I'm free, to be honest. If it's Mondays or Tuesdays, either day is okay with me. I think that I'm also the type of person who, at this point, especially after the slump, I do not enjoy writing styles that I need to really work for. And that doesn't mean that it needs to be like extremely basic because I don't like that either. I do like very flowery writing style. I know that not everybody does. But with Malazan, I had to work. And at this point, it's like protecting my brain for another reading slump. That Malazan is probably not going to be the smartest idea. I have been thinking of substituting Malazan next year for prints of the Baker books, R. Scott Baker, because I think that I will probably enjoy those more with their religious war stuff, and they are trilogies. So even if they're difficult, I think that the smaller series format will work better for me. Hi, Cleo. The patron reading sprints are done. I hope that you made a lot of progress, Joanna. You're welcome, Marlene. And good luck with reading a little bit more before bed. I'm probably going to just get into bed and then read a little bit, but I'm usually extremely hyped and awake when I'm doing these sprints. So I need a little bit of time, and usually that's 30 minutes to an hour to slow down and get ready to actually fall asleep. But I will probably be reading a little bit more just off camera. Thanks, Chris. And thanks for stopping by. It was a lot of fun. Uh-huh. That is actually a smart idea, Raf. I'm going to do that as well. Publication order is usually the way to go. Well, I have heard that as well, that after the sixth Malazan book, you can take a break. But yeah, 6 months at this point, I don't want to count. But the last time that I picked up Malazan was in July, so it's been a while. Ooh, still 40 pages. Well, the book that I'm currently reading, I'm not going to finish because, well, I still have 600 pages to go. I just started it. But the other one that I started, this one, this is the one that I am going to continue in bed in 5 minutes. And I am at page 30 of a 140-page book. So if I read a little bit today and then tomorrow, I will finish this one before the end of the month. So that's great. Yeah, that's why I tried Feist with the Rift War cycle, because I thought, well, it's a very long series, but it's divided into trilogies. That's like Realm of the Elderlings, and I love Realm of the Elderlings, so this is the one to try. And then I didn't like it, but I still think that that's one of the smartest ways to go if you want to have a very long series. So maybe Discworld will be that for me, more or less. But I am on the hunt for more of those books or more of those series because I know that they exist. I just don't have any knowledge of them existing. Yeah, I'm very happy that I chose it. And it also made me realize that I should have picked it up earlier because I forgot some of the names and I forgot some of the major plot points. Luckily, there was a small recap. That is good to know. Yeah. Okay, this has solidified my decision that I am going to give Baker a try next year and just put Erickson on hold. Because if Baker is both easier to read, and I do think that the plot in general is going to be more to my taste, then yeah, that's an easy choice. I've heard that as well, Cleo, that the Empire trilogy with Jenny Burts is a better one. However, I don't know, and I have asked this to multiple people, but somehow I always forget what the answer. I don't know if you should have read the original trilogy before you jump into the Empire trilogy, because I think that that is taken place in the same world, but in a different part of the world. So I don't know how much background knowledge you need to have, and if you can just read the Empire trilogy without having read anything of Magician, because I'm not going to push through Magician to then read the Empire trilogy. But if it's one that I can read just as a standalone trilogy, then I might give that one a try. Okay, so you guys, thanks for just sticking with me and keeping me company while I'm reading. It was honestly one of the best ways to spend my evenings, so thanks. And hopefully, I will see you next week. Have a lovely evening.